Good afternoon. Welcome to today's session, TAFE and Polytechnic Library Series, Deep Diving Databases with EBSCOhost. My name is Rachel Lowe, and I'm an EBSCO training specialist. Please note that today's session is being recorded. You may have noticed that your microphone has been automatically muted. If you have any questions as we're going along, please hit the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen or go ahead and type your message into the chat box. Please don't feel like you need to wait until the end of the session to ask any questions. Feel free to jump in anytime. A bit later on today, you will be receiving from me an email with a link to the recording of today's session, a copy of the PowerPoint slides, and a link to an online evaluation. The online evaluation only takes a couple of minutes to complete, and if you're able to take the time to do so, we do appreciate it. Each one we receive is read through carefully, and we use them to help structure future training sessions. As I mentioned, my name is Rachel Lowe, and I'm an EBSCO training specialist. My background is in midwifery, education, and library and information studies. I'm a certified librarian, and I continue to practice clinically as a registered midwife. I've put together a few objectives for today's session. It is my hope that by the end of the session, you will be able to navigate and search databases using EBSCOhost. You'll be able to work with your search results, browse and search for publications, construct and apply basic and advanced searches, locate and access help and support resources. I've put together a very short interactive quiz to go along with today's session. If that's something that you're interested in participating in, please go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen. And I am also just going to copy that link. So you can either click on the link in the chat box, or you can scan the QR code that's on the screen. It's just a very short 3-question quiz that you complete as we're going along. All right, before we jump into the databases, I'm going to go over some search strategies that you will find helpful. Now, the most important of these is what's referred to as Boolean searching. I'm sure you've heard of Boolean logic. Both Boolean searching and Boolean logic are based on the work of the British mathematician George Boole, Boole, which is where the word Boolean comes from. And he was a British mathematician who lived in the 1800s in England and later Ireland. So with Boolean searching, it is a very simple and logical, but very powerful way of searching. It simply consists of entering 2 or more search terms separated by one of the Boolean operators. And the Boolean operators are the words and, or, and not. And I know we have here today some very skilled searchers who are very familiar with this. And I know we have some people to who this is quite new. So with Boolean searching, if you've ever seen some complex searches, you would have noticed lots of ands and ors and parentheses and things like that. Now, the Boolean operator and is used between terms to narrow your search. For example, if I were to ask the database to give me articles about endangered and birds, I would only retrieve references that are about both of these things. I am not going to retrieve articles about birds that have nothing to do with endangered. I am not going to retrieve articles about endangered that have nothing to do with birds. I'm only going to retrieve items that are about both endangered and birds. So it's like the overlap in a Venn diagram, and that's illustrated for you in the infographic at the bottom of your screen in that reddish orange color. The Boolean operator OR is used between terms to broaden your search. So sticking with those same search terms, if I were to ask the database to give me articles about endangered or birds, I would retrieve every single item in the database about endangered, as well as every single item about birds. So it's a very broad search. Now, this can be quite confusing to people who are new to Boolean searching because, of course, in our everyday natural language, when I use the word and, it's an expander. I'm talking about more things. When I use the word or, it narrows things down. We talk about one or the other, either or. But in Boolean searching, it's the opposite. And narrows your search or broadens your search. And of course, the Boolean operator not can be used to omit a term from your search. So if I were to input endangered not birds, I would retrieve articles to do with the term endangered, but anything to do with birds would be omitted. Now, I'm also going to briefly mention using wildcards in your searching, and I will send these slides out. So if you wanted to spend a bit more time looking at this, you certainly can. When we talk about using wildcards in searching, this refers to using characters on your keyboard like an asterisk, a question mark, a hash, and quotation marks. So the asterisk is the truncation or word stemming device, and it takes the place of a string of characters or letters. Also can take the place of a complete word. And there's a few examples there. For example, if you wanted to search for cardiac or cardiology or cardiomyopathy or cardiovascular, you could enter all of those search terms, or you could enter the common root or stem of those words. In this case, CARDI, followed by an asterisk. Just be aware, however, that of course computers are very literal. And if you enter CARDI asterisk, you will pick up words like cardiac, cardiology, cardiomyopathy. You would also pick up words like cardigan. As I mentioned, the asterisk can be used to replace an entire word. As in the example there, mental health asterisk services would retrieve results like mental health services, mental health support services, mental health community services, mental health crisis services, and so on. The question mark works similarly, but it replaces a single character or letter. The alternate spelling wildcard is the hash and can be used for words that have a couple of different spellings, and you would replace the optional word with the hash, as in the example there for color, which in Australia and New Zealand we spell COLOUR. In some parts of the world, that spelling has been simplified with the U removed. Replace it with a hash and you'll retrieve both spellings. And of course, using quotation marks for phrase searching. I think this is quite well known. These days, I certainly use this all the time just when I'm looking for information on the internet. If you put quotation marks around a phrase, the system treats it as a single unit. In this example, if I put quotation marks around pressure ulcer, I will retrieve references that contain these terms next to each other in this exact order. Now, I've also included a slide about proximity searching. This one is a little bit less well known, but it can be quite useful. With proximity searching, you're asking the system to find any time two words are within a certain number of words of each other. So healthcare N5 leadership. You're asking the system to find any time the words healthcare and leadership are within 5 words of each other in any order. So this would match phrases like healthcare leadership or leadership in healthcare. Using the W works similarly, except that the words must be in the order that you entered them. So healthcare W5 leadership would match healthcare leadership. It would not match leadership in healthcare. All right, I'm just going to jump now into a live demo. So if you just bear with me, I'll switch to my browser. Okay, so this is what EBSCOhost looks like, and you use EBSCOhost to search databases. Now, this is a basic search screen. EBSCOhost is an interface that is customizable to an extent. So you can choose, for example, if your default search screen is the basic search screen, or your default search screen might be the advanced search screen, which looks like this. There are certain features that can be enabled or disabled. So if anything I'm showing looks different to what your organization usually shows on the screen, that's because this is a customizable database. So here, if I click on New Search, it takes me to that basic search screen. Now here it tells me what databases I'm searching, and if I click on this, I get a complete list of all the databases available on this profile. Now, this is a demo profile, so there is a great big long list of databases available. And what I've chosen to search here, and I know with TAFEs and polytechnics, the subjects studied are very wide and very varied. So I put a bit of thought into which databases we'd search, and I had a look at the databases that various TAFEs and polytechnics subscribe to, and it is just such a wide, varied list. So I've just picked two. So here I'm searching hospitality and tourism complete. And just scrolling right down here, I'm also searching CINAHL Ultimate, which is a database aimed at nursing and allied health. Okay, but with EBSCOhost, you can search one database or many databases, just depending what you have on your profile. All right, so here I'm going to use some of our search strategies we just looked at. Okay, so I'm looking for the search term restaurant, and I'm asking for any time that is within 5 words of the word manage or manager or management. So I'm going to go ahead and perform that search. And you can see I've got 11,000 results here. Now, your most commonly used filters are here. So I only want to look at articles where I have the full text available. I only want to look at peer-reviewed articles. I only want to look at items published in the last 5 years. And here I've got source types because I selected peer-reviewed. I'm limited to academic journals there. Now, you can access more filters by clicking on all filters, and that menu will slide out from the right-hand side. However, as I mentioned, this is a customizable interface. So some of you might have a filter panel down the left-hand side. Okay, it depends how it's been set up. But I'm going to go ahead. Now you can see there are a whole great big long list of additional filters here. Let's say I only want articles in English. And again, I can look at other things as well. If I want to limit just to one database, remember we're searching two, but I can select just one of those if I want to. I can search by specific publication, by publisher, and so on. All right, so I've got 165 results here. You can see with each of these, I have the title. Anything to do with our search terms is it's highlighted or in boldface or in italics. I've got the author's names here. I've got the title of the publication, the issue details, and the database this comes from. I have the beginnings of an abstract or a description, and I can click to see the whole thing. And you will notice each article has been tagged with a number of subjects. So this one's been tagged with restaurants, consumer behavior, restaurateurs, customer satisfaction, revenue management, and so on. You will notice that these are clickable. So if I were to search, for example, customer satisfaction, I would get a results list full of other results that have been tagged with customer satisfaction. I can see here how I can access the full text. I have a cited by feature here, and it brings up the cited by articles. And that's a little slow. There we go. Okay. More like this will bring up articles that have been tagged with similar subjects. So it will bring up similar articles, and but that is how it decides what articles are similar. It will look at articles with similar tags. There is a new AI Ask feature, and there's also AI Insights. If you click on AI Insights, 2 to 6 points about the article will be generated. Now, again, you may not have all of these features enabled. So if what you have on your organization's EBSCOhost looks a bit different, that could be why. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and click on one of these. And I'm just choosing an article at random here. This is not an article I'm familiar with. But when you click on the article, it brings up what's referred to as the detailed record. And you can see a whole lot of bibliographic information about the article. I've got the title, the authors, their contact details, the subjects the article's been tagged with, the complete abstract, author affiliations, and so on. Okay, I can also see the PDF there, or I can click here to access the PDF. And we're all familiar with what a PDF looks like. It looks just like the page out of the journal, complete with page breaks and page numbers. Now you will notice here, I can save the item. I can cite it, great citation tool where you can pick the citation style you like and simply copy to clipboard. You can also export citations using EndNote or EasyBib. You can also add to a project. You can share. And if you share an article, you can use Google Drive or OneDrive. You can create a link. You can also email to yourself or a colleague, and you can put multiple email addresses here. You can choose how you want to send that. So I'm going to send that in APA 7, including the abstract, and I'm just going to go ahead and send that to myself, and I'll show you what it looks like. It's a really great way of sharing articles. You can also download or print. You can view publication contents. There's a listen feature, and there's accessibility support. Now, for any of the articles, I'm just going to go back to that results list. For any of the articles that also are available in online full text. I just want to show you what that looks like because there are some additional features to online full text. So here we've seen you can save the item. We've looked at the citation tool, adding to a project, sharing, downloading, printing. If you have online full text, there is also a translate feature. Usually takes about 3 to 5 seconds to translate. I'm going to translate this article into Deutsch or German. And it looks like there we go. Okay, so that's translated for me, and I can revert to the original language with one click. When you have online full text, you also have an interactive table of contents. So I can jump directly to any of those sections. Again, I have publication contents, a listen feature, and accessibility support. Okay, now with these, again, you can save. If you want to save items permanently, you do need to be signed into a My EBSCO account. I am signed in here. It recognizes me. It's got my name. If you are not signed in, when you click on this, you will have the ability to create a My EBSCO account and to sign in. Once you've got that account, you can save items permanently. My saved items can be seen here. So I can save articles or searches. I can categorize the items I save using projects. I can view recent activity, which is like a search history. My holds and checkouts are there. I can set up alerts and so on. So you'll notice with each of these, I have the save icon and also those tools we've already looked at: Cite, Add to Project, Share, Download, and so on. Now you can do this with an entire results list up to 500 items. To select 500, you do need to be signed in, and that's to do with publisher permissions. So I've got a results list here of 165 articles. If I want to select all of those, I can. And then I can download all 165 or save all 165. Let's say I want to add them to a project. If I click on that, I can choose a project from my drop-down menu, or I can create a new one. I'm going to call that restaurant management. That's free text. You can call it whatever you like. Due date is optional. Description is optional. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add all of those items to my project, restaurant management. Okay, so I selected up to 500, which in this case is 165, and I've added to a project. You can also share in bulk or cite in bulk. So now, if I go into my projects, there is my project I just created called Restaurant Management. And I've got 165 items saved there. Okay. Now I'm also going to show you in my email, if you just bear with me one moment. Sorry, too many tabs open, but I do just want to show you what that looks like. So as you recall, for one of the articles there, I did organize to have that emailed to myself. So here I've got the citation in APA 7. I ticked the box to have the abstract sent, and there it is. I've got the EBSCO permalink, but I've also got the PDF of that article there. Okay, so it's a really great way to share articles. All right, and let's go back to our results list. All right, you can also access, I've just had a great question. Are you happy for the recording and PowerPoint slides to be shared with our TAFE lecturers for use in assisting students to improve their searching skills? Absolutely, I certainly am. Okay, if I go to the advanced search screen, you can see it brings up a more complex search screen where I can have up to 12 rows to do more complex searching. I've got my Boolean operators there. I can select fields and so on. I also have a number of filters here, and there are specific filters for those specific databases. CINAHL, for example, has a lot of unique filters. CINAHL, if you're not familiar with it, is a database aimed at nursing and allied health. So you can see some nursing related filters there. For example, I can search just for articles where any author is a nurse, randomized controlled trials, and so on. So with EBSCOhost, you have the ability to do quite basic searching. You also have the ability to do really complex searching if you wish to. Now with EBSCOhost, you also have the ability to do a natural language search. If you toggle that on, you can type in a query in natural language. So I'm going to type in, why do some women develop diabetes in pregnancy? Okay, now you've got a little pop-up here for how does it work, if that interests you. and also show refined query. Now, again, this may be of no interest to you, but if you are curious, under refined query, you can see it's created a Boolean search for me. So I asked about women developing diabetes in pregnancy, and it created a Boolean search. And you can see the search terms that were used. Okay, you will notice here, this is where I click for new search. You can also browse publications. So you can select the database you're in. Remember, I selected two databases. If I just want to search the hospitality and tourism database, and I want to search for publications, and I'm going to search by subject and description. And let's say I'm interested in searching for publications to do with tourism in the hospitality and tourism database. And you can see these publications listed here. So let's say I'm interested in the Journal of Tourism and Cultural Change. Now I can access issues here. You can search within the publication by searching here, and it gives you information about that article. All right. Now, in the email I send you this afternoon, I will send you some links to access help and support. And here I've got links to EBSCO Connect and EBSCO Academy, but I will send you links to those. I will also send you a link to the interactive quiz. I can see one person's completed it, but I'll send you a link to that if that's something that you were interested in participating in. All right, does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you very much for attending today. I hope you found this session useful. We've had a very quick high-level overview of EBSCOhost and how you can deep dive databases. EBSCOhost is a great user interface where you can do really basic searching, or if you wanted to get into very complex searching, you have the ability to do that as well. You can also save items, you can categorize your research, and so on. As I mentioned, you will be receiving an email from me a bit later on today, so look out for that. Thank you so much for attending and enjoy the rest of your week.